The morning air hung heavy with dust as Michael Torres watched the tiny elephant collapse again in the dirt. Her legs buckled beneath her, too weak to hold up a body that should have been full of life and energy. At barely 4 weeks old, she weighed less than half what she should. Her eyes, clouded with infection and pain, stared at nothing. The veterinarian had seen plenty of tragic cases in his 12 years at the Arizona Desert Wildlife Sanctuary, but this one hit different. They'd named her Luna when the rescue team brought her in 6 days ago. A construction crew found her wandering alone near the Mexican border, dehydrated and starving. Her mother's body lay a mile away, killed by smugglers who wanted her tusks. The baby had walked in circles for what must have been days, calling for a mother who would never answer. Michael knelt in the sand beside her enclosure, his hands gripping the metal fence. Luna's breathing came in short, painful gasps. Her trunk, which should have been exploring everything around her with curiosity, lay limp in the dirt. The infection in her eyes had spread too far. Even with surgery, she would never see again. For a young elephant who needed to learn everything from her herd, blindness meant death. Not today or tomorrow, but eventually. But the physical damage wasn't even the worst part. Luna had simply given up. She refused every bottle of milk they offered. She didn't respond to the sounds of other elephants. She didn't move unless someone forced her to. It was like watching a light slowly fade out, and Michael couldn't do anything to stop it. Emma Rodriguez, the head keeper, walked up beside him. She'd been working with orphaned animals for 20 years. She'd seen cubs lose their mothers, birds fall from nests, and deer abandoned by their herds. But she'd never seen anything like this. Luna wasn't just sick. She was heartbroken. They tried everything their training books suggested. They played recordings of mother elephants calling to their babies. They brought in Bella, an older female elephant who'd raised 3 orphans successfully. Luna showed zero interest. Even when Bella gently touched her with her trunk, Luna pulled away and curled tighter into herself. Michael stood up, brushing the dust from his jeans. He had a meeting with the sanctuary director in an hour. The conversation he'd been dreading for 3 days now. The medical reports showed Luna's condition getting worse every day. Her organs were starting to shut down from malnutrition. The 4 fluids were buying time, but not much. The sanctuary had a policy. When an animal showed no will to survive, when keeping them alive meant prolonging suffering, they made the humane choice. Michael understood the logic. He'd even agreed with it before. But standing here, watching Luna's tiny chest rise and fall, he couldn't accept it. Not yet. Something told him her story wasn't finished. That evening, Michael drove to the county animal shelter on the other side of town. He told himself he was just checking on a dog they transferred there last week, but that wasn't the whole truth. His mind kept circling back to something he'd heard from one of the volunteers that morning. A story about a dog that wouldn't eat, wouldn't play, wouldn't do anything but lie in his kennel and wait for someone who was never coming back. The shelter was quiet when he arrived. Most of the dogs had settled down for the night. Jennifer Kim, the shelter manager, met him at the front desk. She'd worked in animal rescue for 15 years and had that look in her eyes that people get when they've seen too much sadness but refuse to look away. She led him through the rows of kennels to a corner section where they kept the special cases. The dogs who needed extra time or care before they could be adopted. That's where Michael saw him. The black Labrador was huge, probably close to 90 pounds. His coat was a mix of black and tan, dusty from lying in the same spot for days. His brown eyes followed them as they approached, but he didn't lift his head from his paws. No tail wag. No excitement. Just exhaustion. Jennifer explained that his name was Cooper. He belonged to an Air Force veteran named Marcus Webb who lived alone in a trailer outside of Phoenix. Marcus had PTSD from 2 tours overseas, and Cooper had been trained as his service dog. For 6 years, they'd been inseparable. Cooper knew when Marcus was having a panic attack before Marcus did. He'd wake him from nightmares. He'd keep him grounded when the world felt like too much. 3 weeks ago, Marcus died from a heart attack in his sleep. His sister found them 2 days later. Cooper was lying on the bed next to Marcus, refusing to leave. When they finally got the dog out of the trailer, he fought them every step of the way. Since arriving at the shelter, Cooper had barely eaten. He ignored the other dogs. The volunteers tried everything to get him engaged, but nothing worked. He just lay there, staring at the kennel door like Marcus might walk through it any second. Michael crouched down in front of the kennel. Cooper's eyes met his for a moment, and Michael saw something there. Not hope exactly, but not complete emptiness either. Intelligence. Awareness. Grief. An idea started forming in Michael's head. It was crazy. Probably dangerous. Definitely against every rule the sanctuary had. But as he looked at Cooper, then thought about Luna lying in her enclosure across town, both of them dying from broken hearts, the idea wouldn't let go. What if the answer wasn't in any textbook or training manual? What if it was sitting right here in this kennel? Michael barely slept that night. He spent hours at his kitchen table, laptop open, reading everything he could find about animal behavior and trauma. The scientific papers were encouraging. Animals could form bonds across species. Dogs had been known to comfort other animals in distress. But nothing he read suggested what he was thinking about had ever been tried before. Not like this. The next morning, he called an emergency meeting with Emma and David Chen, the sanctuary director. They met in the small office overlooking the elephant enclosures. Through the window, Michael could see Luna lying in the same spot she'd been yesterday. She hadn't moved all night. When he explained his plan, the room went silent. Emma spoke first, her voice careful but firm. Elephants were prey animals. They were terrified of predators. Even a domestic dog could trigger panic in a traumatized elephant. Luna was already fragile. This could kill her faster than starvation. David leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He reminded Michael that they had liability to think about. Insurance. Their reputation. If something went wrong, if either animal got hurt, the sanctuary could face lawsuits. They could lose their license. Michael let them talk. He understood every concern because he thought about them all night. But then he pulled up the medical reports on his phone. Luna's latest blood work. Her weight loss. The declining organ function. Without intervention, she had maybe a week left. Cooper wasn't doing much better according to Jennifer's updates. They were both dying anyway. Traditional methods had failed completely. What did they have to lose by trying something different? The debate went on for an hour. Emma worried about triggering Luna's prey instincts. David worried about the legal implications. But slowly, as Michael explained his observations about Cooper's temperament and his theory about parallel trauma, their objections started to soften. Finally, David made a decision. One controlled meeting. Supervised the entire time. Multiple safety protocols. Staff ready to intervene immediately if either animal showed distress. They'd document everything for research purposes. And if it didn't work, they'd stop. Michael spent the rest of the morning preparing. They chose a neutral space, a large indoor area used for veterinary examinations. All equipment was removed. Cameras were set up in every corner. Emma assembled a team of their most experienced handlers. Everyone would be watching, ready to act. At noon, Michael drove back to the shelter to get Cooper. Jennifer had the dog ready, cleaned up and wearing a simple collar. As Michael loaded him into his truck, Cooper's ears perked up slightly. For the first time since Marcus died, the dog seemed alert. Like he sensed something important was about to happen. On the drive back to the sanctuary, Michael glanced at Cooper in the rearview mirror. The dog sat calmly, looking out the window at the desert landscape rolling past. Michael hoped he wasn't about to make the biggest mistake of his career. The examination room felt too quiet as Michael led Cooper inside. The dog moved carefully, his nose working to process this new environment. He showed no aggression, no fear. Just calm curiosity. After a few moments, Cooper settled near the center of the room and lay down, his head up and alert. Emma entered next, carrying Luna. The baby elephant was so light that one person could lift her. Emma placed her gently on a padded mat in the far corner. Luna immediately curled into a tight ball, her trunk tucked under her body, ears flat against her head. Her breathing was shallow and quick. Cooper's reaction surprised everyone. Instead of standing or approaching, he made himself smaller. His body relaxed completely, his tail still. It was like he understood that the creature across from him needed space and gentleness. Then something unexpected happened. Cooper began making a soft sound, barely audible. Not a whine or a bark, but something in between. A low, rhythmic hum that filled the quiet room. It wasn't threatening. It sounded almost like a lullaby. Michael watched Luna carefully. Her ears twitched forward slightly, rotating toward the sound. Her breathing slowed just a fraction. It was the first time she'd responded to anything since arriving at the sanctuary. Cooper continued the humming for several minutes. Then, moving slower than Michael had ever seen a dog move, he began inching forward. Not directly at Luna, but in a wide curve that brought him closer without seeming like a threat. Every movement was deliberate and careful. When Cooper was about 6 feet away, he stopped and lay down again. This time he positioned himself parallel to Luna, both of them facing the same direction. Not staring at her. Just being present. An hour passed. The staff watching from behind the glass barely moved. Cooper kept up his quiet vocalizations. Luna's body began to unfold slightly. Her trunk loosened from its defensive position. Her ears stayed forward, listening. Then Cooper did something that made Michael's breath catch. He stretched out one front paw, extending it in Luna's direction. Not moving toward her. Just offering. Luna's trunk moved. Slowly, cautiously, it reached out across the space between them. The tip touched Cooper's paw, so light it was almost not touching at all. Both animals froze. Cooper shifted his paw slightly, applying gentle pressure. Accepting the contact. Returning it. Michael felt his eyes burning. In all his years working with animals, he'd never seen anything like this. Two creatures who should have nothing in common, both drowning in grief, reaching out to each other in the darkness. The session lasted another hour. By the end, Luna was lying flat, her breathing calm and steady. Her trunk rested near Cooper's paw. For the first time since the rescue team found her, she looked peaceful. When they separated the animals, Luna didn't curl back into her defensive position. She stayed relaxed, her head up slightly. That evening, she drank half a bottle of milk. Over the next 3 weeks, Luna and Cooper's sessions became the center of both their lives. Every morning, Cooper would enter first, announcing himself with that same gentle hum. Luna would lift her head, her trunk reaching out to find him. Their private language grew more complex. Different sounds meant different things. A soft woof meant Cooper was moving. A low rumble meant he was settling down to rest. Luna began to change. She started making small chirping sounds that the elephant team had never heard before. She was talking to Cooper in her own way. Her appetite returned slowly at first, then with more confidence. Cooper seemed to understand his role in this. He'd position himself near her food, becoming a living landmark she could follow with her trunk. When she found him, she'd know the food was close. The transformation in Cooper was just as remarkable. The depression that had consumed him disappeared. He approached each day with purpose, his tail wagging as soon as he saw the sanctuary truck come to pick him up. His coat regained its shine. His eyes grew bright again. As Luna grew stronger, her personality emerged. She was curious and playful, traits that had been buried under all that grief. Cooper introduced games, bringing toys that he'd nudged toward her. The first time Luna picked up a ball with her trunk, the entire staff cheered through the observation window. Cooper became Luna's eyes. He learned to warn her about obstacles with different barks. He'd guide her around their enclosure using sounds and gentle nudges. Luna's confidence grew every day. She went from barely moving to exploring every corner of her space. The story spread fast. News channels picked it up. Videos of them together went viral. People from around the world sent messages and donations. The sanctuary used the attention to fund research into animal trauma and cross-species bonds. Luna and Cooper became proof that healing could come from the most unexpected places. Michael stood by their enclosure one evening, watching them rest together. Cooper lay beside Luna, her trunk draped gently over his back. Both of them peaceful. Both of them alive. David walked up beside him. He admitted he thought Michael was crazy that first day. But looking at them now, he understood. Sometimes the best medicine wasn't in a bottle or a textbook. Sometimes it was just having someone who understood your pain. Years would pass. Cooper would grow old, his muzzle turning gray. When his own eyesight began to fail, Luna would become his guide, using gentle trunk touches to help him navigate. Their roles would reverse, but their bond would never weaken. They proved something important. That family isn't about being the same species. It's about showing up for each other. About refusing to let someone face their darkness alone. And saving each other, Luna and Cooper had saved themselves. And in doing so, they'd shown the world what love really looks like. Simple, patient, and willing to cross any divide to reach someone who needs it.